And that was Carlo, down in Naples. And you see the famous picture where Rothschild is kissing the Pope, and he's like, whoa, we're going to do business, man. This is history. We are going to do business. And in fact, in France, they called the two Rothschild brothers, Nathan and James, Nathan in England and James in France, they called them the Demon Brothers, and they were about to lynch them. But they were spared, and they have been spared many times over, this family. And they're still out there murdering and killing and plundering and medicating us and poisoning us and indoctrinating us and pumping millions of dollars into their corporate churches, mostly Christian. Now, I'm not going to attack Christianity. There's some good Christian churches out there that are not corporatized. They're not corporations. Good in terms of, well, you know, they're not corporations doing business. Because, corporation is business. The Watchtower and Bible Tract Society incorporated. And they've got a board and members and shareholders. Every corporation has shareholders. You're the single sole shareholder of your corporation, your registered birth name. You're the shareholder of that, the beneficiary and the executor, the general executor. And this is what I'm going to show you, that we need to reclaim that position. So when you go into court, you just rock up and you say, hey, Mr. Judge Boy, I happen to be the general executor of this account. And by whose authority do you use that name as personal identification? So I'm going to appoint you trustee, and you just dissolve this case. Bye-bye. Business is done, and get out there. Get out of there. And this is what we have to do. We just have to do it to restore justice and law to the world. And it's a coming. 1537, convocation. Okay, now I've gone into this, I've got a video on YouTube about the law. I've gone into this in more detail. I'm not going to go too much into that. These are the trusts, okay? This takes away your real property. This takes away your personal property. This takes away your soul. You've all been baptised into the Catholic Church. You have, all of you. You got a birth certificate? That's your baptism. That is your baptism. You see, it's a ritual. They perform this ritual in our hospitals, because hospitals are military facilities. Since 1931, or at least in the 1870s, with Abraham Lincoln's efforts and the banksters. But we are born in wards. You are wards of the state. In their eyes, this is their presumptions. This is their presumptions, and unless you rebut those presumptions, they stand. That's why they can get little young 18-year-old boys that come to court and they're trembling and nervous because they didn't have a license, or they were speeding or something like that. And they get taken into court, and people are being jailed for not paying CityLink. This is how they can do this. They can get away with it. Because people aren't saying, hey, hang on a minute here now. Hang on a minute. I am the sole beneficiary and shareholder of my corporation. And I'm going to tell you, Mr. Public Servant, what's for. You're not going to tell me. And I do not consent to your jurisdiction, or I do not consent to go into one of your warehouses, because we're just property, chattel. So they can warehouse us in prisons. They can do that if you don't know who you are. You see, this is what the whole thing of law, religion and science is. We have to bust the three big ones. And the law must be dealt with. We've got to deal with this aspect of their presumptions. Get into Dean Clifford, where he teaches all this, I probably only know 1/100th of what he knows. You've got to go to him. Believe me, he's got the latest information, and he's got interviews out there that you can listen to, and they're great. And believe you me, you listen to 3 or 4 hours of Dean Clifford, you're ready to rock and roll with this Dominion stuff. And you really will understand who you are. Right? We don't need, as sovereigns, to consent to their services. A bit like the mafia, you know, when the mafia comes a-calling, you can rest assured they've got a service for you. Yeah. And you might want to, I don't know how you deal with that, because my family come from southern Italy, Calabria, where the mafia is called 'ndrangheta, and they've killed people who have resisted them. And believe you me, that mafia there goes right back to the Vatican. You can see it in the movie The Godfather. That's not fiction, that's true what they're telling you there. It all goes back to the Vatican. The Vatican controls the lot of it. The cardinals are the greatest, most evil sorcerers in the universe. And they are about to be dealt some justice. And we're going to see it with our own eyes. And possibly those FEMA concentration camps that they've built will house a bunch of these types, a bunch of these elite types. Unfortunately, it's not something that you want to dwell on, because it's better to dwell on positive things, but the camps are there and the elites are still around, and we know that they have been certainly poisoning us in many ways, especially in the mind, with lies. And that's what we're here to address.
So how do you get past the presumption of separation of church and state? Like the big public story is that church and state are no longer actually working together, and there's big separation. Yet obviously by all this information, it is still run by the church, and all states are run by church. So how do we get past that lie and throw that back into their face?
Well, we have to identify what the Vatican, we really have to reveal what the Vatican is. It's a corporation. Okay. It's corporatism. So it doesn't matter what arm of the Vatican, whether it's the banksters, because they're in bed with each other, the Jesuits, the Club of Rome, the Knights of Malta, and all these buffoons.
But they have a zombie army that just does what they want them to do. I mean,
yeah, because there's money.
Think for themselves.
There's money. People, look, unevolved people will do anything for a paycheck. They'll do anything. You want me to kill my mother? Sure, man. $10? Oh, lovely. Bernanke types, you know? George Bush types. We're going to bring democracy to Iraq. Yeah, because, first of all, George Bush and his family, the murderers of JFK and John Lennon, they're going to bring their democracy, their mob rule, to Iraq. Of course they are, because Halliburton, Blackwater and all their corporations are in there doing business with the Iraqis.
But they also had a system of law that was different to Catholic as well, didn't they? The Iraqis, Iranians, Chinese.
Yes.
They're all separate models.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. That's why the war in Vietnam happened, and Korea and everything like that, because it's the Vatican re-establishing and asserting its power in the Far East, in the Americas, wherever it goes, with the UN and with the elite corporations, the trilateralists, the Bilderbergers, the Council on Foreign Relations. It's all rigged. The market, it's all rigged. Everything's rigged, and we need to bust it open by standing up and reclaiming our dominion. That's what the prodigal son's about. Are you all familiar with the prodigal son? It's a beautiful parable. It's in the Bible, right? I've got the New Jerusalem version here. And it's in Luke. And the reason why I love it is because when you understand it correctly, you know who it's relating to. It's relating to us. We're the prodigal son. You see, we go away from our causal, unconditioned consciousness, That's how good we are. I'm not preaching to the, I'm preaching to the converted here. I know you people have got an idea of this at different levels, that how divine you really are. I don't have to convert you. You know, I don't have to scream at you. Please see it. You see it. You know it. And we're starting. We are more understanding the fact that we are more spiritual than we are physical. And what is physical? It's motion. Everything you see that appears to be hard and solid is just motion. There's no substances. We'll get back to the prodigal son. I won't read it, in fact, but I'm just going to explain how the story goes. But before I do, let's just see what Walter Russell has to say about matter and substances. Okay, the physical world. The scientist has not only divided matter into 92 different kinds of substances, but he has divided these 92 substances into atomic systems made up of many more minute particles of somewhere around 20 primal substances. These he calls electrons, protons, neutrons, antineutrons, antiprotons, photons, gravitons, mesons, kappa mesons, positive mu mesons, negative mu mesons, positive pi mesons, negative pi mesons, neutral pi mesons, tau mesons, positive V particles, negative V particles, neutral V particles, and so on. Without an end as yet in sight of the many non-existent substances. They don't exist. They so convincingly act their parts in producing the mirages of substance in this universe that the greatest scientists of this world have not the slightest suspicion that the many different substances of matter are but different states of motion. Now, you're not going to learn that in the universities when you get your degrees. The prodigal son is us. There's a story in the Bible where there are two sons and they both children of a very rich man. And they decide that they're going to, or one of them does anyway, he decides that he's going to venture off down into the world like Narcissus. He went down, 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 and he saw that he was good looking. And so he fell in love with himself. And this is what we do. We fall in love with this material world and all its pleasures and enticements. We go out there and we get a bit of pain and we get a bit of pleasure. Then we had enough of pain, so we go back to pleasure. And we don't realise that they're one and the same thing. And then when we work out that pleasure is pain and pain is pleasure, then we start thinking about joy and bliss.